What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with some big data coming out for tomorrow. It's going to shake the markets, not to mention Jerome Powell's speech. But please note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. Anyways, NIO saw a very, very nice push all the way up to this 4.2 area. We dipped a little bit only to make a lower high, and there is a risk of us continuing to fall if we lose 3.96. Now, if we end up taking this loss, there will be a dip all the way down to this 3.8 area if that support ends up failing us. And right now, there is a risk of NIO making a lower high relative to this high. We got to break past 4.2 to remain bullish, and if we don't, there could be a dip. Now, the whole market saw a bit of a dip today as we got some very, very important data, not to mention some anticipation approaching Jerome Powell's speech. So today the PMI reports came out. Manufacturing was a little bit weak, and the market saw a little bit of a negative reaction to that. Not to mention the fact that we were also at some key resistance. So tomorrow is going to be a very, very big day. We have one big thing coming. 30 minutes after the market ends up opening, we have Jerome Powell giving a speech. Whatever he says will have a big effect on the markets. Whatever he says will cause more insights from the markets to understand what's happening with interest rates, to what extent the Fed may raise or cut rates. They're going to be cutting rates, sorry, not raising, but cutting rates, and whether or not they're going to be cutting rates by 50 basis points or 25 basis points, and what else is going to end up happening. So I'll be watching to see what he ends up saying, and Jerome Powell is going to give us some very important information about all of that. So I think whatever he says will cause some very, very interesting volatility, especially his comments about the economy. So we'll see if Jerome Powell gives us a rug pull or a rally. We'll just have to wait and see. Right now, the market thinks there's a 75% chance we get a 25 basis point cut and about a 25% chance we get a 50 basis point one. So we'll see how that goes. As far as earnings goes, real quick, we had Kava, not to mention Ross, announcing their earnings. For those out there who are interested, Kava did relatively well. They actually beat estimates by about 10%. We saw EPS be a beat at about 17 cents above expectations. The revenue was a nice beat. And overall, we had some good guidance. So that's why the share price was up for the stock. And then simultaneously, we had Ross. Their EPS was a nice beat. Their overall revenue was also a beat, but their guidance was, I would say, very close to expectations. You could say it's a little bit below, but not bad, I would say, for Q4. But what's good is the entire year's guidance was really, really strong. So good guidance for the year, but their guidance for Q4 was a little weak, despite that the share price is still up. So good news for Ross. Now, as far as NIO goes, I just want to mention that there's some talk right over here about their EC6. Once again, it's getting a lot of attention because of its growth potential and a lot of cargo space and a lot of really, really cool things that can be used for long trips. So very, very cool, in my opinion. On top of this, NIO has their deliveries coming out in a little bit over a week. So far, deliveries are looking pretty good, at least for Q2, and we'll see what happens with Q3. There's been a lot of talk about NIO's earnings, which is going to be in about 2 weeks from now on September 5th. So that's going to be very important. Whatever they announce will have a big effect on the share price, so that announcement's coming out. Besides that, volume is still very flat at about 26 million. I'm not really seeing anything else changing in terms of the data, except for the fact that the daily seasonality is showing green about 50% of the time on Thursdays. So not much. And overall, the share price is still kind of flat. So what do I see for the share price right now? Honestly, guys, I suspect what's going to happen is NIO is going to shuffle around this 3.99 area. It's going to shuffle a bit tomorrow morning. Then Jerome Powell is going to give his speech. It all depends on what he ends up saying. If Jerome Powell says something that pumps the markets, if he dumps the markets, you never know what's going to happen. Typically, he's very, very ambiguous. He doesn't give straight answers and such. So I'm not too sure, but it depends on if he says anything about the economy and interest rates, because right now during the FOMC minutes, it seemed like the Fed was more fixated on giving us a cut. So if he does mention cuts, that could have a big effect on the way things move. And he's been very optimistic lately, especially kind of downplaying, some things that could be going on. So that does open the door for a little pop that could come thanks to Powell. But even if we do get a pop, I still favor that it might not last, and we might see a dip followed by that afterwards. So I think it depends on what Jerome Powell says. If 4.2 breaks on NIO, look for a big push for 4.5. If we lose 3.8, we're going to be turning bearish for 3.69. Those are going to be your levels. I think tomorrow the most likely possibility is Jerome Powell gives us a pump and dump. I don't know for sure, but I think that might end up happening. So that's what I lean towards. We'll see if that ends up being the case. As far as SPY goes in the 4-hour time frame, we're actually just barely holding 556 as support. If we lose 556, we're going all the way down to low levels such as at least 553. I think is going to be coming next, if not 550 below that. So I'll be watching this 553 area next if we end up losing the support we're at. This is critical support at 556, by the way. And then below that, we have basically like 550 coming. If we're bullish, you want to see us break past 560 again. You have to get back above 558. That's one resistance, and 560 above that. So those are going to be your levels. I suspect the most likely possibility is Powell might cause a little pop. He might cause a little pop given his very, very optimistic tone lately. So I don't know for sure, guys. It all depends on what he says, but I would think that he might cause a little pop to establish a lower high before we continue lower. And I don't think the move will last. I still think that there is still a higher risk of downside. But don't become too bearish unless we lose 556 on SPY. Watch your levels for confirmation. And just know it depends on what Jerome Powell ends up saying. So I do see a risk of downside looking at the technicals, but we'll see what Jerome Powell says. There's a bearish divergence on Nvda. We'll see if Jerome Powell causes a little pop. It's about 126, maybe a little bit higher. We have 128 above that. And then if we reject and we end up losing our support at this 123 range, so like right here, this is our support. I think that we're at risk of dipping all the way down to 120. This is going to be our 50 EMA. So if we lose 123, we're going down to 120, followed by 116. My guts tells me we pop and then drop. Jerome Powell may cause a little pop, but then it might not last. We could still get a rejection and dip back down lower. For Bitcoin, we're just consolidating right now. We have 60,800 as resistance and then 59,000 as support. We might pop and drop depending on what Jerome Powell says. It all depends on him, so watch your levels just to be safe. Yes, we do the same thing. We could be approaching 5,600 flats. 5,610 might be test as well. But if we fail to break through that, we could continue to sink on futures. There's going to be a risk of it dipping all the way down towards 5560. So be careful, guys. We may see a pop and drop as well. For others out there, such as Tesla, Tesla's looking more bearish as we're losing this key support now. So if we don't reclaim it, Tesla's at risk of dipping all the way down to at least 208, followed by 202. If we do reclaim this trend line, we could be pushing back up from 215 to 217. My gut tells me tomorrow we might see an attempt to retest the trend line. We'll see if we reject off this or not. If we do get that rejection, we could be tipping. So look for a little bounce attempt as the most likely possibility. And if it fails, we're going to be looking for more downside. Same thing with the QQQ. If we lose 475, we're going to be at risk of 473 again. And if 473 fails us, we're dipping all the way down to the 460s. Especially this, this big imbalance would take us down to like the 464 area. So we're going to the 460s to 473 breaks. If we hold above 475, look for 477 as resistance, followed by this 479 area. We could pop and drop, and I still see that as a strong possibility. For Aapl has 225 as resistance, followed by 226, and we have our support at 223.8. My guts tells me we might rebound a little bit to 225, then continue lower, all the way down to 222. So we look more bearish overall from a technical standpoint. But whether or not we continue to fall depends on Jerome Powell's speech. I do favor a pop and drop. For other tickers out there like Supermicro, if we break past 610, we could rebound. Otherwise, we're dipping to about the 580s. We'll see what Jerome Powell causes. We have a range on the IWM between 216 and 213. There may be an attempt to rebound in the morning before we continue lower. If we lose this trend line, however, regardless of what time it is, this is going to turn bearish. We'll be looking for 212 and eventually like 210. So it looks more bearish with the double top. It is favoring the downside. We'll see what Jerome Powell causes. Coinbase ended up losing support at 200. We're at risk of 197 followed by 192. Could we rebound to 202 to 200? Yes, we could, but we might reject and continue lower. For Amazon's looking more bearish right over here. We had 175 as support and 177 as resistance. We might try to rebound towards 177, maybe a little bit higher before we continue lower to 175. If that fails, we'll be dipping all the way down towards 172. So I think it depends on the levels. Lose 175, we turn bearish. Break 177, we could try to rebound. It is possible we rebound and then end up failing and start dipping. That's what I kind of lean towards. For Meta, we have a bearish divergence. If we lose to 530, we're dipping back down to 524. If we break past 537, we could turn back up. We are looking like we're forming like a double top. We'll see if Powell attempts to help us pump or not, but then we might be followed by some downside back down to 525. For Microsoft, it's the same thing. We're rejecting off our 425 area. This looks more bearish. I am favoring, because of the fact that we lost 417, we could continue to dip. We might try to get back up to 417 to 419 and then continue lower. And I think that we could be on our way down ultimately to the 410 area. Google lost 166, which is not a good sign. We might retest 167 tomorrow, and we'll see if we reject. If we get that rejection, we can expect more downside all the way down to about 163. The market still looks more bearish, so keep that in the back of your guys' minds. With that being said, I think the downside is looking more prevalent for the markets, but we'll see if we get a temporary bounce thanks to Jerome Powell's speech, what kind of reaction we get. I don't know for sure, guys. It depends on what he says, but the market has pumped many times when he gave speeches, so just be open minded to that possibility. And even if we do get a little rebound, I don't think it's going to last. I think the odds would favor we kind of pop and then drop back down. So the market's at some tough resistance. NIO also looks like it's establishing a lower high, so the odds do favor downside tomorrow. We could rebound first and then continue to dip, so watch for that very carefully. With that being said, I just want to say I appreciate you guys so much for listening. Have a great day. I'll see you guys in the next one, and peace out.